What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six podcast show here on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Will Brinson, joined by Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn, as we are every Wednesday to make picks against the spread for every single game on the slate. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that last week, Brady Quinn went 12-2-1 against the spread. Brady, take your victory lap now.
No, there's no victory there. I can promise you I will not be able to replicate that. I'm not like, what is it, Florida, spicy Florida, Pete Prisco, and going to gloat about it. That's just what I expect out of myself every week, although it's going to be really hard to match again in week 5.
It's a pretty good record.
Wait. I got a text from him on... Hey, Will, I got a text from him on Sunday afternoon. He was bragging about how good his record was. So don't tell me about how gloating and you don't gloat. You gloated.
Not on this show. And only because the week prior to that, I think I got a text from Pete Prisco about how red hot he was after getting like 10 of the picks against the spread right. Try getting 12, Petey.
It's pretty incredible that
I'm ahead of you.
When Pete's running hot, you're getting fast and furious texts. He's like, oh, what's my best bet record? Check my best bet record. All right, let's see if we can stay hot there. Win you guys some money by watching this show. And we will start with a Thursday night game. It features Tampa Bay at Chicago. I'm not going to do anything crazy like call the Bears fraudulent, Pete. And Chris Godwin's missing here, so it may be a little bit easier for Chicago. They're going to be missing some guys. Tom Brady, though, playing some awesome football in a win over the Chargers. Who do you like in this game on Thursday night?
Oh, I think I'm going to take the Bucs. Now, the injury situation is concerning for me. We'll have to see who's going to play and who's not. I imagine Mike Evans will be fine. We'll see a couple of those other guys in there as well. But, no O.J. Howard. That's a big concern. It means Gronkowski has to step up his game a little bit. But come on, let's be real. Nick Foles, we saw what he is last week. He isn't very good. And this Tampa Bay defense played poorly last week against Justin Herbert. I think they'll play much better in this spot. My lean is to the Bucs minus the points. I don't love this game, but I would take the Bucs before I take anything close to taking Nick Foles or the Bears.
Well, I'm definitely not taking Nick Foles and the Bears to win, but I am going to go ahead and take the 3.5 points. Now, if this number continues to keep moving down, which it has the past 24 hours, Pete, we talked about this game yesterday. It was at 5.5 points then. It's now down to 3.5. I think it gets to 2.5. I'm on the other side of this bet. I think Tampa Bay wins a close one, a low-scoring game on a short week by a field goal or maybe less than that. But at 3.5, I hate that hook here. Pete, I'm with you. I don't have much faith in Nick Foles being able to get much together. I do think Matt Nagy and the Bears are going to try to focus more on the ground attack and try to protect him a little bit and then pick and choose their spots when you want to attack in the pass game, in particular Allen Robinson. So there's that. On the flip side, I do think this is still a good defense for Chicago, and I do think it'll present some challenges for the Tampa Bay, especially without O.J. Howard, depending on how healthy Mike Evans is, and with that pass rush as well. So low scoring, close game in my opinion. Tampa Bay wins this, but I'm going to go ahead and take Chicago and the 3.5 points as of right now.
Tons of injuries for the Buccaneers. I mean, that's sort of why the line is dropping so much. Scotty Miller is banged up, limited to practice. He could miss time. Godwin already ruled out. Of course, O.J. Howard done for the season. Rob Gronkowski on that list. I mean, this is a whole host of pass catchers. I think, man, I don't want to get in the way of an over in 2020, but if I were going to take an under on a Thursday night, this would be it. I mean, look at all those people that are hurt. I think the Bucs will try and simplify their game plan, run the ball. You'll see the same thing, as you point out, Brady, from the Bears, and that could certainly lend itself to low scoring. Look, I'm going to just lean into this a little bit. I called the Bears fraudulent for 2 weeks in a row. Then they got blitzkrieg by Indy. I said they were going to lose 24-3. They were losing 19-3 when Foles threw a garbage touchdown. He hadn't won a game he started since the Super Bowl, okay? He hadn't covered since the Super Bowl. Now, maybe he'll get a little Tom Brady, rejuvenation here. I don't think so. What's that? I don't think so. Fraudulent Bears, go Bucs. They're going to thrash them. The Bears are frauds. You can put it on HQ. You can put it on the social media channels. I don't care. Bring it on, Bears fans. Buffalo at Tennessee, Sunday at 1 o'clock, a CBS game. And there is no line yet here because the Titans are still having COVID-19 issues. Pete, depending on what happens with this game if we even get it. I'm curious how you think it plays out, but do you think that the league should hammer the Titans for meeting at Montgomery Bell Academy in Nashville and doing some illegal practices against the protocol rules?
No, because it happened because Monday was when they put those kind of rules in place. And so, no, I would say no, they won't get hammered for it. Somebody's going to get hammered for something in that building. I mean, something went wrong. Clearly, they weren't wearing masks or whatever. They didn't follow all the protocols. And you're going to have positive tests. That's the bottom line. This isn't going to be the last team that has positive tests. It's just a matter of how you handle it. If they play this game, I love Buffalo. And I know this is breaking a Pete Prisco tenet because they're playing back-to-back road games outside the division. But that passing offense is legitimate. And the Titans gave up 30 points to Kirk Cousins and Gardner Minshew. They can't stop anybody. I think they're going to have problems stopping Josh Allen in this one. He is really playing great football, and the Bills' offense is aggressive and explosive. They'll score a bunch of points in this one. I'll take the Bills, even though playing 2 consecutive games on the road, Brady.
It's always tough. That's one of the Pete Prisco-isms, if you will. Look, I want to talk for a minute just about the Tennessee Titans and potentially practicing. I believe it was on September 30th. Ryan Tannehill brought up a good point when he was asked about, during this period in time, how they can keep themselves and continue to prepare themselves to potentially play. If you can't go into the facility and prepare yourself, I agree with them. You're not going to be able to sit there on Zoom meetings all day and go through or walk through what plays and concepts, things you're going to do, and think you're going to be physically prepared to play this following Sunday or for any game for that matter, regardless of the day that it's on. So I don't blame him or the other players for going out there and practicing and try to prepare themselves and their bodies to go out there and play. And again, I understand the NFL and how they're taking a stance against COVID. I get that. But at the same time, too, you can't ask for them to go out and be competitive and go win football games when their jobs are on the line, but also at the same time, respect all the rules that they're putting in place at this point in time, given the situation in Tennessee. So I can understand both sides of this one. I think it's a tough one for a lot of players and coaches out there who constantly feel like they have to prove themselves on a week-to-week basis. In regards to this game, though, this is just a tough spot for Tennessee, regardless of what preparation they've been able to have, if any. And even though they've probably been able to focus down on Buffalo for a couple of weeks, knowing that they're going to miss last week's matchup versus Pittsburgh, this is a scenario where I think Buffalo with some momentum, with the way Josh Allen's played, their defense, it showed some cracks at times, but right now I feel confident enough to say they can win a close match with the way this offense is operating under Josh Allen. So keep an eye on Brian Daboll, by the way, their offensive coordinator. He will continue to get a lot of buzz for one current vacancy, at least with the Houston Texans. But I think as this team continues to have success this year, you're going to hear Brian Daboll's name more and more and more for some of those vacant head coaching positions.
I actually asked the question. I didn't do a good job asking the question. I did it. I was trying to do it in a way that would make Pete say something that would have Brady lash out at him for defending, for going after the Titans for what they did, and it didn't work. So that was a bad question by me. Look, I agree though. Like, what are you supposed to do? Just not practice for 2 weeks and then play an NFL game? I agree. It's ridiculous. I know. I mean, I think we all agree. Like, you have to be able to practice. There's talk about the Titans having to forfeit a game or get out of here. Like, if you're going to do anything, the NFL needs to go ahead and make a decision to chop out the week between the conference championships and the Super Bowl. That is a week that is largely for fans and the media and a bunch of nonsense that happens anyway. It's not going to be a thing this year unless we magically get some cure that comes out of the sky in the middle of a month out of nowhere. So more than likely, that week is going to be worthless. Instead, bump it back. Let's create a week 18, and then that gives you a secondary bye or at least an option to push some of those games back without completely moving the schedules around. And then if you have to, kick everything back another 3 weeks. We ain't got anywhere to go. 2020's hanging around for a while. 2021 will be here. It's got plenty of time. We'll soak in it. We'll marinate in it. Goodness gracious, get it right. Don't make anybody forfeit a game and let people practice. The Vikings at the Seahawks on Sunday night. The Seahawks -7, over under 57.5, Pete. What kind of world are we living in when Mike Zimmer's got a 57.5 over under in primetime? Kirk Cousins, who do you like in this potential shootout?
Who do I like? I mean, Russell Wilson is the MVP right now, but I don't like him. I like Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense in this game. I think the Seattle defense is terrible. I do think the Minnesota defense has been bad, really bad, and that's surprising with Mike Zimmer, but they've had a lot of change on that defense, including the guys calling the defenses and Andre Patterson and his son Adam Zimmer. So what happens? I think they go up and down the field. I think that number is high in terms of the total for a reason. Both defenses stink. These are two teams that if you met 2-3 years ago, you say, oh, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Two good defenses. Neither one of them is very good right now, but I'm taking the points. I'm taking Kirk Cousins plus the points on the road. Yes, I'm taking Kirk Cousins plus the points.
Look, I know Pete wants me to address the fact that he's taking Kirk Cousins, but I already did that yesterday, so I'm not going to waste my time and oxygen on that, okay? Because Pete's on the wrong side of this bet. I like Seattle. I'm going to go ahead and lay the points. Here's the reason why. Pete talked about how bad both defenses are, and he's right. The Seattle Seahawks pass defense is bad, but guess what's not bad? The run defense. They play a lot of post-side safeties looks. They usually have an extra defender in the box. They are going to sell out to stop the run, stop Dalvin Cook, and not allow the Minnesota Vikings front to push them around like they did to the Houston Texans defensive front a week ago in getting their first win. So it's going to be all on Kirk Cousins' shoulders and whether or not he can deliver. And I get it, Justin Jefferson, he's continued to come along as their first-round pick and help out in the passing game. But to me, this is where the Seattle Seahawks defense starts to get right. I think they'll get healthier for this matchup as well, even though it feels like they're kind of limping closer to just to get to the bye week where they get some of those guys back. And on the flip side, this is this Minnesota Vikings defense that it's younger. They struggled this year so far with the pass rush. And I think they're going to struggle even more trying to match up with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and the bunch of options they have out of the backfield, as well as at the tight end position. So this is a good spot where I think Seattle takes care of business at home, and the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins, who's, by the way, in prime time. I don't know, Will, last time Kirk Cousins' record in prime time, how's that worked out so far for Kirk Cousins?
Not very well, Brady. And by the way, let's look at this for a second. When you consider that you really want Kirk Cousins and the Vikings chasing 7 or 4, like they're down 14, you need them to backdoor cover. They lose to Green Bay 43-34. Kirk Cousins attempts 25 passes. They get blown out by Indianapolis 28-11. He attempts 26 passes. They get a shootout, a crazy wild shootout with the Titans. They lose 31-30. He attempts 27 passes. Then Mike Zimmer says, we're going to open it up and crank this thing up. And he attempts 22 passes in a blowout win over the Texans. So they don't throw. They don't throw when they're losing. They don't throw when they're winning. They want to run with Dalvin Cook. And Brady's right. This is not the spot for Dalvin to get loose. You will see Russell Wilson take some deep shots against a young Minnesota secondary. They will be vulnerable. Seahawks will win this one by 21 points. And you will regret, Pete, trust me, because I've been there. I've taken Kirk Cousins in primetime against the Seahawks. You will regret in the second quarter. You're like, why did I take Kirk Cousins in primetime against the Seahawks? Los Angeles Chargers at the Saints on Monday night. Saints minus 7.5. Your boy, Justin Herbert, going against the legend, Drew Brees. The real question here, Pete, is what sort of montage will we have when Drew Brees breaks a record on Monday night? I can't wait to find out. Who are you taking in this game? Over under 50, Saints minus 7.5.
Well, where's the game going to be played? They haven't decided that yet either. There's a chance that game could be moved to Indianapolis, right? So considering the hurricane is beating down on that area. So we'll see. But I think it's a lot of points. I'm not a big believer in that Saints defense. I think Justin Herbert showed that he can play a good defense and stand in there and make throws last week. Even though you text me every time he does make a bad play. Oh, Justin Herbert. Because I said he was going to be a good player. That's a true story, by the way. That's a true story. I think that this kid has it. I told you that before the draft. I still believe that. I think he can stand in there and make throws. And the Saints defense stinks. While guys aren't playing well, they just aren't playing up to expectations. It's going to be a pretty high-scoring game as well. But I think the Saints will win the game. But you're going to give me all those points, I'm taking them.
I'm on the other side of this one. I like the New Orleans Saints in this spot. Look, even though they may not playing in home field advantage, it's not like they have a home field advantage anyway. But I do love the fact that if they are going to play in Indy, which has been one of the proposals because the annual scouting combine is there, so they're familiar with it, is once again, they're indoors. So that plays an advantage in a comfortable environment for Drew Brees and this offense. I think this offense will have its struggles putting up points versus the Chargers defense that's maybe overachieved or play pretty well this year. But to me, the concern is more the defense. Pete touched on it. I actually think this is a get-back-right spot for this defense. Going up against a rookie quarterback, Dennis Allen likes to mix up and disguise some of his looks. I think it may be tough for Justin Herbert to have to carry this team, especially considering that Austin Eckler will be out for this matchup. So I think it's a good spot for the pass rush for the Saints. I think they'll be able to have their way with the Chargers offensive line and also try to fool and trick Justin Herbert into maybe his worst performance yet of his rookie career.
Ooh, I hope Pete likes Monday evening text messages, because he'll be getting a couple of Justin Herbert's throwing pick sixes. Look, I will admit that, and Brady can attest to this, because Brady was on today's Pick Six podcast audio show. And I asked Brady, you can watch it on YouTube.com. I said, Brady, should I just like cave on this Justin Herbert thing? I'm getting a little scared right now because he's looked pretty good. But Brady said, "Don't just wait, just be patient." I look, he's looked a lot better than I think anybody could have possibly expected in his rookie season, given what we saw of him from Oregon. This is a tough ask, though, whether it's in New Orleans or Indianapolis. Drew Brees and the Saints are covering machines in October. I think they're 13-0 against the spread in their last 13 October games. They crushed Monday Night Football, and this is a get-right spot for them. They have to come out and win this game. I mean, they're seeing Tampa Bay sort of surge. They'll know what Tampa's done against Denver by the time this game kicks off, obviously. And this is a team that starts to get things rolling around this time of the year. The lack of Austin Eckler is a big, big problem, I think, for the Chargers. And I don't think they'll sell out the Saints won't sell out to stop the run. Give me the Saints to cover the 7.5 on Monday night. Could be certainly a high-scoring game. All right, coming up after the break, the Chiefs and Raiders. That could be a high-scoring game as well if it gets played. We'll talk about the COVID-19 concerns concerning that matchup and see who we like if it ends up kicking off here on the Pick Six Podcast Show on CBS Sports HQ. All right, welcome back to the Pick Six Podcast Show here on CBS Sports HQ. Will Brinson, Briscoe, and Brady Quinn picking every single game against the spread. Assuming, of course, that there is a spread or that some of these games are played, because Chiefs and Raiders is a game that is in, at least it's in concern. I don't know if that's a phrase that's actually usable, but it's 2020. I can do what I want. So we'll say it's in concern. There's concern about it. The Chiefs were 13.5-point favorites at William Hill. The total was 56 in this game. It has been pulled off the board, basically, Pete, because Stephon Gilmore, who tested positive for COVID-19 after presumably picking it up from Cam Newton, who got it on tested positive on Saturday, was last seen hugging Patrick Mahomes at the end of that Monday night game on CBS. Fantastic game. And now there are at least, concerns. Patrick Mahomes has been, according to James Palmer of NFL Network, sleeping in a separate part of his house from his wife, who is currently pregnant. I think that's a smart move. You isolate if you've had that contact. What do you think about the whole situation with Kansas City right now, Pete?
Well, let's not forget that the Raiders had a positive test, too. Don't forget about that. So when you look at this, obviously, there's concern about Patrick Mahomes because they saw him with Gilmore. But would there be concern with Patrick Mahomes if they didn't have a picture of him with Gilmore, even though he played a game and Gilmore was probably infected during the game? And I imagine they came, close to each other at some point during that game. So let's hope that he doesn't contract the virus. Let's hope that he can play on this week, and let's hope that the Raiders can play as well. And if he can, I think he's going to light them up. I think he's going to light them up just like he did a couple weeks ago. Remember the Ravens? Remember when the Chargers kind of slowed him down? He didn't have the big numbers, and then he went to Baltimore and he lit them up. Well, the other day, the Patriots kind of slowed him down, and you could see the frustration on his face. Well, this week he's going to make the Raiders pay for that. He will light them up. This is going to be a high-scoring game, but he's going to score in the 40s this week if he plays, which I think hopefully he does.
Hey, Pete, how much longer is it going to take Will to actually get you a question off the top for some of these picks? My goodness. How many different ways were we going to go off the top of that, Will? I mean, get to the point, get to the question, man. Look, in regards to this game, if this game does take place, this is more about what the Kansas City Chiefs defense has showcased to me this year, and more about Patrick Mahomes and what happens whether he plays or not, or what happens with this or who's in the quarterback spot. Because I think their offense is good enough to beat the Raiders based on how they've looked defensively. On the flip side of this, I think the Kansas City Chiefs defense is really the story. It's really what led them to a win on Monday Night Football this past week. It's really what I think could potentially plague Derek Carr and the rest of the Raiders on offense and ultimately help them win a second Super Bowl in a row. It's the defense improvements and adjustments they've continued to make over the course of this year. So Tyrann Mathieu, I know that's Pete's buddy. He's been a baller this year. He'll continue to be. Fenton at the quarterback spot, he's continued to develop too, along with obviously their pass rush and those guys up front. So I'm excited about this matchup because I'm with Pete. I think whatever the line ends up coming out to be, if it's over, 13.5, it's past that 14-point mark, then I'm maybe on the Raiders side of things. But I think Kansas City can win this thing by 2 touchdowns. So I like the Chiefs big.
Brady, do you have any thoughts or concerns about Patrick Mahomes possibly playing and/or coming in contact with Stephon Gilmore and COVID-19?
There you go. That would have been the better way of leading into that whole entire conversation. I have really nothing on that topic other than the fact that, look, you're playing outside, you're playing outdoors, talking to other medical professionals, and just comparing other leagues, right? Like the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. And we all seem to think about, look how well the bubble worked in those other sports. Well, yeah, but they also had to, right? Because they have to play indoors where clearly there's a better chance of things being transmitted in that case. With Major League Baseball, the Marlins were really the first team that got hit big. A lot of people had assumed that was from playing. Probably not. You talk to medical experts, they'll probably tell you that it's not because of the contact due to playing, especially outside. It's most likely due to the people that they're around, either in the facility, the people around who they live with, or what they're doing in their free time when they're not at the facility and preparing. So that's more the concern, I think, for players right now, is what they're doing when they're not preparing for a football game.
Yeah, and we saw with the Titans and the Vikings when they played that there was no contact transmission within the game because the Vikings haven't tested positive yet. So that's a very good sign for playing the sports. I just assumed that when I tossed it to Pete, you would follow up with that information. I wouldn't have to prod it at him. That's fine.
It took 2 hours for you to toss to Pete. I think we all had a birthday in the amount of time that it took you to get there.
Okay. Bengals at the Ravens. The Ravens are minus 13. Who do you like, Pete?
Look, this is a big number, and you guys know I'm bullish on Joe Burrow. I think he's going to win 1. And Brady quit saying 2. I said 1 in the next 10 years, and he's been everything I thought he would be. He is going to be special. No, I said 1, and I said maybe 2. He is going to be special as a quarterback. We're seeing that already. But they're not a good football team right now. They just aren't. Defensively, they have all kinds of problems. Lamar Jackson is banged up. He didn't practice today on a Wednesday. That's an issue. That could be concerning. But I do think he'll play. This is not supposed to be a big deal. And the Bengals' defense is atrocious. I think that they'll put up a big number. I lean to the Ravens. I don't love it. But, when you face that blitz defense for the first time as a young quarterback, Brady, I imagine that can be overwhelming.
Not for a guy like Joe Burrow, who's used to seeing these sorts of pressures and blitzes, and he handles it incredibly well. I love the fact, too, that he's continued to develop chemistry with T. Higgins as well as Tyler Boyd. So I think he's got answers in the passing game versus some of Darren Martindale's pressures. And I think those guys can get open and make plays for him. And Joe Mixon has started to emerge as well. I'm with you, though, in regards to the concern about the Cincinnati Bengals defense. But with news of Lamar Jackson not practicing due to a knee injury that may or may not impact him necessarily in his preparation for the game. I do think, however, that's a concern for me. So in this spot, I think the Bengals keep this one closer than people think. I think Joe Burrow handles the pressure well. So I'm willing to ride with the #1 overall pick and getting the 13 points here.
Yeah, it seems like the Lamar Jackson thing is really more of, it's like out of an abundance of caution, they decided to not put him out of practice. And I'm sure he'll be back in a couple of days without any issues whatsoever, no matter how long he's gone or what he has to deal with. I do think, I kind of like this over. I think we could see a bunch of points scored because, frankly, Joe Burrow, I don't think you can stop him or slow him down. And Lamar Jackson, assuming it is Lamar out there, they're going to put up points as well. The Bengals defense is very porous. I think we just need to decide that Joe Burrow, who, by the way, looks like a cross between Jim Brewer and Macaulay Culkin, Joe Burrow's nickname needs to be Backdoor Burrow. You give this guy double-digit points, he's going to find a way to come storming through late and cover. He's a covering machine. I will take Burrow plus the 13.5 all day long. Indianapolis at Cleveland. Browns are hosting the Colts in a matchup of 2, 3, and 1 teams. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. The Colts, slight favorites on the road, -1.5, over under 47. Pete, what do you think about this game?
The Colts haven't beaten anybody. Let's be honest about it. I mean, you could, like you said, the Bears are a fraud, so they didn't beat anybody yet, and they lost to the Jaguars. Think about that. But they didn't punt in that game, and they've been good on defense, and I think they're going to show that in this game. I know the Browns, what they want to do. No Nick Chubb, so they want to pound Kareem Hunt in the middle of that line and control the clock. But I think this Colts defense is legitimate. Now, they have some injury concerns at linebacker. Darius Leonard will be on the field. That's a good question. Even so, I think they're going to slow down the Browns' running game. They're going to put a lot of pressure on Baker Mayfield to win the game. I don't think he can. I'm concerned about this line a little bit. It looks fishy. It looks really fishy to me, but I'm going to lay the points. I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts.
Pete, we talked about this yesterday, and you're right. That line was at 2.5 points. It's already moved down a point in favor of the Cleveland Browns. I still like the Browns getting 1.5 in this one. And as I said yesterday, just go ahead, bet the money line. I think the Browns win outright. I think they found their style of play on offense that's really conducive to help all parties get involved and Baker Mayfield to play at his best. And that's because they are running the football. Kareem Hunt, you talked about, Dearness Johnson, too. He'll be a part of that rushing attack to help limit the effectiveness of that Colts defense that's tops in the league right now. On the flip side, though, people tend to forget Myles Garrett's one of the best edge rushers in the league so far. He's tied for the league in sacks. I think he gets after a immobile Phillip Rivers, who I know you're frat buddies with him. You guys did the Elephant Walk and all that together. But at the end of the day, I have a hard time believing, though, that the Cleveland Browns can't put up some points in this one and put some pressure on Phillip Rivers and make him get some turnovers.
I hope none of our anybody, just don't Google that, okay? Don't Google anything that comes out of Brady Quinn's mouth. Look, I'll take the Colts here, but it is fishy. There's something that sort of stinks about this, and the Browns are just a good football team. I think Kevin Stefanski's a good football coach, and he has done a great job setting this team up for success. This is looking like look, it's perfectly 2020 that the Browns would be good. I will take the Colts though because I think that defense is much better than anything that Cleveland has seen so far. I would say Darius Leonard, big factor there. If he misses, I might flip back to Cleveland. Don't like Indy, don't love them. Denver at New England. There is no line on this one yet either because obviously Cam Newton, we don't know whether he's going to play or not. He tested positive for COVID-19 last week. Stephon Gilmore tested positive on Wednesday. Pete, any thoughts as to what you do if you're New England and whether or not this game happens and what you like if it does?
Well, also, let's not forget the Drew Lock situation for the Broncos. Is he going to be back in ready to go as well? So there's a lot of questions involving this game. If Cam Newton's in the game, they win the game easily. I don't think there's any question about that. But those two other guys stunk the other night. They were bad. I mean, Brian Hoyer, come on. You take a sack with no timeouts left. That's something you do in your third year, not your 50th. I mean, it was a bad situation for Brian Hoyer. He's not any good. Jarrett Stidham looked jumpy at times, made a couple throws in, threw a bad pick. If Cam Newton plays, I'll lean to the Patriots no matter who plays quarterback for the Broncos. If he doesn't play, I'll probably still lean to the Patriots no matter who plays quarterback for the Broncos. But let's hope Cam Newton's back in there because if he is and they play, I think they handle him easily.
Yeah, without knowing what the line is right now, I'm just leaning towards Bill Belichick and the Patriots at home. I think that's the play here, in particular because their defensive scheme versus the Kansas City Chiefs, it was effective. If not for poor quarterback play, that game's probably a lot closer. I'm not going to say they would have beaten the Chiefs, but they definitely would have made it more interesting than the final score showed. In regards to the quarterback decision, if it's not Newton, which I'm with you, Pete, I think if they have Cam Newton at quarterback, this is a much easier win for them. It should be Jarrett Stidham. I mean, you should see what you have in this young man. Give him some more playing time. I think he's got obviously higher value, too, in this offense, a little more mobile as well if you want to do some of those zone read things or a quarterback run game like you do with Cam Newton. And on the flip side in this matchup, whether it's Drew Lock or not, even if it's Brett Rippon, obviously, who's coming off a win and some additional time to prepare, I still think when you look at what the Patriots were able to do versus the Chiefs, which is a much more talented group that they're going up against of pass catchers, relatively shutting them down, I think they've got a much better chance of keeping their team in this football game, confusing a young Brett Rypien in his second start, or continue to get after Drew Lock, who obviously still hasn't played a lot of football. So this one, to me, though, I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. That's something that I think you want to pound maybe the under in this one, whatever it comes out to be. But I'm leaning on the Patriots.
Yeah, I would lean towards the Patriots in the under as well. Whether you go Brett Rypien or Drew Lock, you know how quarterbacks do under the age of 25 when they head to New England to go off against Bill Belichick? Not well. There's like 2 of them that have ever won. Belichick confuses them. They see things they don't like. And you probably want to take the Patriots here with or without Stephon Gilmore. We'll see what happens if that line opens. Welcome back to the Pick Six Podcast Show here on CBS Sports HQ. Will Brinson, Pete Prisco, and Brady Quinn picking every single game against the spread. Philadelphia Eagles finally got a win. They're in first place in the NFC East. Congratulations for them. Golf claps all around. They now take the short trip to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers, where the Steelers are 7-point favorites, Pete, with a robust over-under of 44. What do you think about this game? Can Carson Wentz pull off another miracle on the road?
You know, when the Eagles play the Steelers, it reminds me of those days way back when I covered the Steagles back in the day in the 1930s and used to go to those games and get some great interviews with the coaches and the players. Yeah, they actually did have a team, the Steagles. They combined at one point. So this is a great spot for the Steelers. I don't think there's any question about that. You see an Eagles team that is really not that good on the back end of their defense. They go all the way to the West Coast, come back. Now they got to go to Pittsburgh to play a team that essentially was on its bye last week. I think Roethlisberger lights up that Eagles secondary. I think they'll block them up well enough up front. And defensively, with the limited weapons, Carson Wentz is going to have a tough time moving the football. So I will definitely take the Steelers in this spot. I think this is when they get that offense really going and Roethlisberger starts hitting Juju Smith-Schuster and using him a lot more. So I'll take the Steelers minus the points.
I'm also taking the Steelers laying the points, in part because I'm hoping they're going to do what Pete Prisco just talked about with 2 weeks to prepare now. I'm hoping this offense, in particular in the passing game, has gelled a bit more, and they're going to come out hitting on all cylinders. But one thing that I'll disagree with Pete on is, this defensive front for Philly can still get after it. And I haven't been impressed by at all with the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. I think there's some weaknesses there. And that's where, if this game is close, that's where the battle is won and lost for Pittsburgh. On the other side, though, that defense that Pittsburgh's got going on, that pass rush, versus Carson Wentz, who's already showcased the ability to struggle with some decision-making and taking care of the football, and not many mismatches from the outside, especially versus that secondary. I'm willing to go ahead and lay the 7 points here.
Yeah, I'll lay the 7 as well. And I think my only concern is, and look at Big Ben's hair right there. That is a tiny little mop he's got going on the top there. I think my concern is that, and I agree with you, the Eagles' defensive line has played really well. It's an underrated group. They can potentially limit what Pittsburgh does on offense. I think maybe Pittsburgh will come out, sort of spread things out, and try and hit some quick hitters, get Ben some rhythm, get Juju loose underneath, and let him take one deep, some yards after the catch. The problem is, how are the Eagles going to score here? I mean, they're rolling out dudes that you get from Madden name generators, and they're trying to score touchdowns on Carson Wentz deep throws. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Jalen Hurts in this one. I'll just lay the points because I don't trust Philadelphia to score enough points. Giants at Dallas. A desperate Dallas team, Pete, is hosting the Giants, a terrible Giants team, and Dallas is, despite being where they are at their record, a 9.5-point favorite, over under 54. What do you think about this potential NFC shootout?
I mean, these two teams, one can't score and the other one can't stop anybody, so something has to give. And so what gives? I think this has to be the spot where the Cowboys show up. I mean, it has to be. And the reason I say that is there's so much pressure on him right now. You're hearing Jerry Jones talking about his team, and he's taking the heat for the way it was built. They looked lazy on tape. You saw, a lot of guys were loafing. That's never a good look. I think they respond to all that. I think they bounce back here. The Giants are playing consecutive road games, and they went to a long trip last week, and now they got to go to Dallas. So I will take the Cowboys, and I think Prescott will have a good day. But I'll tell you what, it's hard to take the Cowboys laying 9.5 points when you watch that defense and see guys getting torched all over the place.
Yeah, but this is the perfect tonic for that defense to look good. A bad New York Giants offensive line and offense right now without their primetime playmaker, Saquon Barkley. So I love this spot for the Dallas Cowboys. It is a big number, and everyone's going to focus on the record for the Dallas Cowboys. But don't focus on that. Focus on Dak. Focus on the production on offense, and they seemingly every single week be able to put up stats, yards, and numbers. So I think they're going to have their way with the New York Giants defense. I think Dak is going to start to get this team on a roll. And defensively, look, defensive coordinator Mike Nolan's got to get this group together. You know, Pete mentioned the loafing and all that. As much as it's about effort, it's also about ensuring that these guys know what their responsibilities are and their jobs are and that they can execute them. I think this is a good offense to go up against to try to clean some of this stuff up. And let's not forget the lead in all of this, okay? It's the return of Jason Garrett, all right? Jason Garrett, the OC for the New York Giants, is coming back in his first matchup versus his old ball club. You wonder how that will factor into all this. Maybe that makes you more potential on the New York Giants side on this one, but I'm still willing to lay the points. This is just not a good Giants team.
I don't know. I think that there's more motivation for Mike McCarthy not to lose to Jason Garrett's team. Like if Jason Garrett's offense comes out there and lights up the Cowboys, you think? I mean, Jerry Jones would be on the booth. Like, what I do? I told you, Steve. I told you we can't fire Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's heart and soul of his team. Yeah, come on, Jason, come on back. I'll run this guy on out back to Green Bay. We don't worry about it. Just come on back, man. Come on back. Look, I will take the Giants here and begrudgingly take the 9.5 points with Daniel Jones. And it's mostly because as good as the Cowboys have been on offense, and they have been explosive, and Dak Prescott is on pace to throw for 6,700 passing yards this season. If you look at their offensive DVOA ranking, Brady, they are 12th in terms of DVO rankings. That's because context matters. When you score, the points matters. And when you score 24 points while you're trailing 41-14 to the Browns, who are playing prevent defense, that's not that impressive. They've been sloppy when they had the ball. They've been sloppy out of the gates. They've been sloppy on offense early on in games. And if the Giants can build a lead against a terrible Cowboys defense, they'll easily cover the 9.5. Yes, Brady, extend the segment.
Well, didn't we talk about how well the Patriots defense played versus the Chiefs? And they were playing a lot of prevent defense throughout the course of that game. Like, do you feel like at any point in time in the game, the defense walks out there and says, it's okay if we give up yards and a touchdown here? Do you think like their objective isn't always to get off the field on third down?
Don't you think there's a little bit of a difference of how the Patriots are playing in a 6-3 game versus how the Browns were playing in a 41-14 game?
No, look, obviously, I think you want to play.
You just called you.
Go ahead, Pete, you can hop in later on. No, look, bottom line is obviously you're going to play a little bit softer coverage more often throughout the course of a game when you're up by that much and force them to go the long and hard way. But it doesn't change the bottom line. No matter what defense you're calling out there, it's not like the defense waltz out there and is like, it's okay, guys. It's okay. Let's just go ahead and give up completions and yards and touchdowns. Let's not tackle. Do you think Pete Carroll feels good about his pass defense and what they've been doing? Do you think that was part of the conversation? Or when you talk to Bobby Wagner and the Seahawks, they're like, no, we don't care that we've been leading in all these games. We've got to put our foot on their neck and shut this whole thing out. I know it's a different team, but everyone's trying to feel that way. So go ahead and take your stat with you, but there's no defensive player who walks on the field at any point in time is like, yeah, we're playing prevent, so we don't care. We'll just go ahead and let him score points.
By the way, Brinson, the Bears fans are mad at you for calling them what? You call them frauds? Well, the Cowboys fans are going to get mad at you because you're calling Dak Prescott garbage time quarterback.
Wow.
He's a fantasy quarterback right now, Pete. He's playing like a fantasy quarterback. I don't know what to tell you. He's scored a bunch of points in garbage time.
Well, go ahead and say it. Call him garbage time quarterback. Say it.
He has won the Millie Maker on DraftKings back-to-back weeks for somebody. He's made somebody, an individual, very rich. But he ain't scoring points when it matters because they're losing football games, and they should be winless if not for a miracle onside recovery against a very unprepared Falcons team. The Cowboys have been sloppy. There's no reason to think they're going to magically flip the switch and come out and be awesome. Give me 9.5 points against that defense and that slop fest all day long. Moving on to the Rams and the Washington football. To the Rams and the Washington football team. The Rams are -7 on the road, Pete, against not Dwayne Haskins, but Kyle Allen and potentially Alex Smith. The over-under here, 45.5.
What the hell is the Washington football team doing? You have a guy who's played 4 games that you're trying to evaluate, and you bench him for Kyle Allen? Are you kidding me? This might be one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen. I hate this. You have to use this entire season to find out what you have in Dwayne Haskins. It doesn't make any sense to me. And they actually played decent football last week. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. Having said all that, the Rams are playing their 3rd road game on the East Coast in 5 weeks. That's tough to do, but it's not tough to do against this team. Sean McVay will have his team ready to play. They will handle the Kyle Allen era starting in D.C. I'll take the Rams.
Something else had to have happened here for Dwayne Haskins, not only to be demoted and benched, but not even be the backup. I mean, they're putting him at 3rd string. And so one of a number of things may have happened that I hate to speculate, but there either had to have been an incident with the head coach, the offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, or someone on the team that forced them to make this decision along with what they feel like has been poor play. Or it could have been the fact that head coach Ron Rivera coming into the season, look, he'd already evaluated Dwayne Haskins as a prospect when he came out from Ohio State, right? He was formerly the head coach at Carolina. So, he wanted to bring a guy like Kyle Allen along because he maybe didn't feel comfortable with this situation, having Dwayne Haskins be the quarterback for the entirety of the season. And maybe he's looking towards the future of who's going to be that guy to come in and be the guy. But I'm with Pete. I hate the fact that he's only got 4 games to start to showcase what he can do. And probably mostly because when I called this game a few weeks ago versus the Cardinals and I watched this team, I was up there watching a thing, and this offense has no rhythm or flow, and that's more of an indication of their offensive coordinator and some of the lack of the pieces around the quarterback position than it is anything that Dwayne Haskins was necessarily doing. So we'll see what happens with Kyle Allen. I don't think he's going to be able to provide the spark that he did for Carolina when Cam Newton went down and he won 4 games in a row. I was out there for that game versus the Cardinals and called it where I think he threw like 4 touchdown passes. I think this is a much improved Rams team. Their defense has played well. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, they're tough to stop. I think the only wild card here is if Chase Young plays, how can he help out that defensive front? But I'm still willing to lay the 7 points and stick with the LA Rams here.
I was just Googling Chase Young to see the latest injury update. Of course, we won't know anything concrete until Thursday or Friday at the earliest. That's just sort of the nature of professional football injuries, but we record on Wednesdays. And I think if Young is out, that's a big, big deal. They are much worse against their defense against the run drops off a ton when Chase Young leaves. It's a testament to what a good player he is. I actually think I'm going to buy in on the Kyle Allen dead cat bounce here against after you bench Dwayne Haskins, you bring him in. I think you're probably right, Brady. I think there's something going on there outside of just the in-game play where maybe it's a situation that Ron Rivera would like to send a message. I do know that the coaching staff really like Kyle Allen. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They like Kyle Allen. We will see how well it goes for him at his return to the starting lineup. I will take Washington plus the points in this spot. It feels like I'm taking some games I'm going to regret later, but such is life. Miami at San Francisco.
You are.
So, more than likely. Miami at San Francisco. The 49ers and Dolphins has no line either. Like half of the friggin' games on this slate this week. And that's not because of COVID-19 concerns. It's because of Jimmy Garoppolo concerns. Maybe even Tua concerns at some point, but not this week. Pete, what do you think about this game? How do you think the quarterback situations look? Would you play Tua in the future? Is Jimmy G back this week? Who wins, et cetera?
I do think I would play Tua sooner rather than later. Get on with it. I'm a big believer in playing the kid. You guys know that. And I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick has done much to inspire that offense and inspire the coaching staff to think that he's going to get to the postseason. So get on with Tua as soon as you can. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays an entirely different team, we saw the other night Nick Mullins isn't very good. They can talk all they want about he's serviceable, and some people used to think he could be a starting quarterback in this league. He's a backup, and that's what he should be. I think Miami plays in this game. I think they show up, play competitively, keep it close. I'm not a guy that looks at that 49ers team and thinks it's even close to being a playoff team right now. Eagles go in there banged up, beat up, and win on the road, and I know Mullins played. But even if Garoppolo played, they would have been in that game. So I'll take Miami in the points. I know there's no line, but it was 7, I think, or 7.5 at one point. I'll take those points.
Yeah, I'm not quite there with you, Pete. I had a chance to look at this team last week, and I think one of the things is, and talking about Tua Tagovailoa, is they just don't feel like he's mentally ready yet, and I think that's fair, especially considering the relationship that Ryan Fitzpatrick has with Chan Gailey, dating back to their time at previous teams, and just how much football he's played, how much more knowledge he has. So there's no reason to subject Tua, especially a guy who battled injuries throughout his career at Alabama, to be thrown into the fire if he doesn't know what blitz is coming, who's uncovered, who's not, and who could potentially take his head off. So I understand we want to rush to get him to talk about the future, but I think Brian Flores wants to win, and he doesn't want to talk about the future right now. He just wants to talk about this week. So I'm with you. I think they'll be in on this game. I think the defense played well last week versus Seattle for a portion of it, with a few exceptions, and taking advantage of young players like Noah Igbinoghene, their rookie. But on the flip side of this, I just think San Francisco will be able to do enough in this game to be able to win it, maybe a 3-4 point game, something like that. So we'll see what the line comes out to be. But that's a long trip for Miami. I still believe in San Francisco, and this team is good enough, even without Jimmy Garoppolo, if he doesn't play, to run, take care of the football, and play good defense and win a tight game.
If Brian Flores wants to win, how about he doesn't kick a field goal down 17-12 with 8 minutes left, trailing against Russell Wilson, and you got the ball inside the 10-yard line? Go get the points, man. And by the way, Chan Gailey, he once got Ryan Fitzpatrick a $67 million contract. What a hero. He better be the best man, the godfather, whatever it is, at anything Ryan Fitzpatrick does for the rest of his life. He got Ryan Fitzpatrick a $70 million contract. Give me the Dolphins plus the points. Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever. I think Pete's right. They're banged up. Miami keeps it close, but San Francisco probably finds a way to win. All right, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll talk about Billy O'Brien out in Houston. Can the Texans come out and win a game, their first game, now that their coach is gone? We'll tell you next. We're on the Pick Six Podcast Show on CBS Sports HQ. Sports HQ, Will Brinson, Pete Prisco, Brady Quinn. The Houston Texans fired general manager, head coach, and offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien this week. Shockingly, just 4 weeks into the season. Can they get their first win without him, Pete? They're 6-point favorites at home over the Jacksonville Jaguars with an over-under of 54.
Deshaun Watson hasn't played well, I don't think, this season. He will this week. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense is awful. There's a lot of bad defenses in the league. That's the worst one. He will light them up. He'll make Romeo Crennel a happy man as an interim coach. I think the Texans blow out Jacksonville. This is an easy one. Give me the Texans.
I don't necessarily know this is an easy one for me, but I'm kind of a believer in Romeo taking over an interim spot. I think he'll provide a contrast to maybe what was happening with Bill O'Brien, and it sounds like what was happening with the players in that locker room. So I do think that there might be a little bit of a dead cat bounce back here, and looking at the Houston Texans and then being able to beat a bad Jacksonville Jaguars team. But, after week one, I wasn't necessarily sure what to think of Jacksonville. I think they've been more competitive at times than I thought, especially when DJ Chark is in the game and able to help out that passing attack. I think this game could be close, but something tells me that this Houston team is going to win a few more games this year. They're not going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think they'll be more towards the middle of the pack. So the ousting of Bill O'Brien versus a bad Jacksonville team.
We're in a clean sweep here. I love a dead cat bounce. Nothing better in the NFL. Guaranteed Houston wins by a touchdown or more. Jacksonville will get some points here. This is a great game for DFS. The Panthers at the Falcons. The Falcons are struggling. Dan Quinn needs some bad, Pete. He's a 2-point favorite hosting the Panthers over under 54.
Desperation is usually really important in the NFL when it shows up, and I think it's going to show up here. Look, I love what the Panthers have done. I think defensively they got tons of young talent on that team. Derek Brown's been a beast. Yetur Gross-Matos, Chin, all those guys are good players. But this is one of those spots where desperation will win out. The Falcons have to have it. Yeah, they're banged up, and I know their defense is really injured, but I think Matt Ryan and that gang will get it done. I'll take the Falcons minus the points.
I'm with Pete. I'll be willing to lay the points here, too. I think Matt Ryan and the Falcons will kind of show that young group on defense just how it's done, given their passing weapons on the outside and how explosive that offense can be. On the flip side, I don't know that Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers will be able to take advantage of that banged-up secondary like Aaron Rodgers did last week. You're talking about two different quarterbacks in regards to just their overall ability in the passing game. So I don't love it. I think what Matt Rule's done so far with Carolina has been somewhat remarkable, given how competitive they've been, and I think he's already made that defense tough for a lot of opposing quarterbacks. But I'm willing to take Atlanta, the Falcons, and obviously Matt Ryan and the rest of the crew, and go ahead and say they win by 3 points here.
Oh, yeah, the explosive weapons featuring Olamide Zaccheaus and Hayden Hurst. Watch out for the Falcons, baby. Give me the Panthers here. They're playing better than Atlanta. Atlanta's terrible. They're not playing good football. I'll probably regret it later. Finally, Cardinals. -7. The Cardinals are -7 at the Jets, Pete. Are you rolling with Arizona?
Yeah, I don't want to, but I'm not taking the Jets. I'm just not. I just don't think they're a good football team. They've had all kinds of issues. The Cardinals didn't play well last week at Carolina. I think they play well here, bounce back, and they will score points against that Jets defense. So I'll lay the 7. I don't love it, but I will take the Cardinals.
It's just a bad matchup for the Jets. I don't think they have anyone on the outside who can match up well with DeAndre Hopkins. I think on the flip side, that offensive line is going to have to deal with Chandler Jones and Joe Flacco, a backup, is not the most mobile quarterback. So, given their lack of weapons, given the matchups in this game, I like Arizona. I'm willing to lay the points.
Clean sweep. Give me the Cardinals. You just don't bet on the Jets. Nobody bet on the Jets. If you don't want to bet on this game, don't bet on it. But don't bet on the Jets. Very simple. All right, fellas. Great show as always. We'll be back for the Pick Six podcast show tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco. I'm Will Brinson. See you guys later.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.